Welcome! This is it, the final explainer in our clinical series. And for this one, we're going to step back a bit. We're moving beyond just the how of vestibular pathologies and asking a much deeper question, why? Why does our balance system fail in these very specific, almost predictable ways?
And the answer, or at least a big part of it, comes from looking at these common problems through the incredible lens of evolutionary medicine. What this framework shows us is that the issues you see in your clinic every day, they're not just random defects. No, they're actually predictable consequences, echoes, really, of our deep, deep ancestral history.
So let's just dive right in. This quote really sets the stage. The key word here is palimpsest. Now what's that? Well, think of it like an old scroll that's been written on, then kind of scraped clean, and then written on again, over and over for millions of years. Each new layer added amazing new functions, but you can still see the faint traces of the old text underneath. And that's our inner ear. It's this layered history that explains both its incredible abilities and its very specific bugs.
Okay, so to really get a handle on these bugs, you've got to appreciate just how ancient the core hardware is. I mean, we're not talking about early humans, not even early mammals. No, we have to go way, way back. We're talking about the very dawn of multicellular life. And this just illustrates that deep past perfectly. Look at this. On the left, you've got a choanoflagellate. It's our closest single-celled relative. See that structure it used for grabbing food? Now look at the right. That's our vestibular hair cell. It's the exact same basic design. It's just been repurposed. Evolution calls this exaptation, from a little feeding tool into one of the most sensitive motion detectors on the planet. I mean, think about that. Our entire sense of balance is literally built on top of an ancient food filter. How cool is that?
All right, let's tackle our first bug, and this one is a straight-up hardware problem. It's an issue with the actual materials used to build our gravity sensors, and you'll know this one well because it explains the #1 cause of vertigo that you see in your clinic.
So this really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? As vertebrates, we evolved these amazing skeletons made out of calcium phosphate, bone, because it's super stable and durable. So why on earth did this critical sensory system, the inner ear, stick with the much more fragile, chemically unstable stuff, calcium carbonate or calcite, for its little ear stones?
And here's the answer. It's a classic evolutionary trade-off. You see, evolution isn't some perfect engineer designing for the future. It's more like a tinkerer, just finding what works best right now. And it turns out, calcite, even though it's fragile, is way denser than bone. And that higher density makes it a much, much better gravity sensor. So evolution basically made a choice. It prioritized short-term sensory precision over long-term durability. It was a decision made way back by our fishy ancestors, and we've just inherited it.
So here's the bottom line. BPV is not some random fluke. It is the direct, predictable clinical outcome of that ancient engineering decision. It's like we have stones of old inside a body of new. And that material choice, which was a massive advantage for a fish, well, it becomes a real liability for a human living an 80-year lifespan. Okay, let's move on to the next bug. And this one isn't a hardware flaw like BPV. Nope, this is a software mismatch. Think of it like a really old, life-saving computer program that's still running, but it's in a modern world it was never, ever designed for. All right, let's paint the classic picture. You've got your patient in the back of a moving car and they're reading a book. Okay, so what are their eyes telling their brain? They're saying, hey, the book is still, the seat is still, everything is stationary.
Meanwhile, their inner ear, that silent sense, is also doing its job perfectly. It's reporting every little bump, every turn, every change in speed. So now the brain is getting two totally contradictory messages, both coming in loud and clear.
And this is where the software glitch happens. You have to think like an ancient grain. For millions of years, there was only one thing in nature that could cause that kind of sensory mismatch, seeing a stable world while feeling like you're moving. And that one thing was poison. You ate a bad berry, you're hallucinating, and your life is in danger. So the brain's ancient toxin detector program kicks in and says, emergency, we've been poisoned. Purge the stomach now. And that powerful, once adoptive survival reflex is what we now experience as motion sickness.
Okay, last one. Let's talk about age-related vestibular decline or presbyvestibulopathy. If we look at this from an evolutionary viewpoint, it's not really a disease at all. It's more like our ancient parts just outliving their original warranty.
Think about it. Natural selection built these parts to work well for a lifespan that was, maybe 30 or 40 years max. There was absolutely no evolutionary reason to make Otoconia or hair cells tough enough to last for 80 or 90 years. So, the slow breakdown of those fragile calcite crystals, the gradual loss of hair cells, it all becomes a clinical problem for one simple reason. We are now living way beyond the expiration date these parts were originally designed for.
So really, when you're looking at your patient's vestibular system, you're looking at something pretty remarkable. It's this living bridge that connects our deep aquatic past with our fast-moving upright present. And of course, it carries all the baggage, all the legacy issues and brilliant hacks that come with that incredible journey.
So what's the big takeaway for your practice? It's really about a shift in perspective. The conditions you treat every single day, they aren't just random defects. They are, in a very real sense, echoes of our evolutionary journey. They're the predictable results of ancient trade-offs, of mismatched software, and of components that have simply outlived their warranty.
And that wraps up our series. Thank you so much for joining us. If you want to dive deeper into topics like dizziness, vertigo, and imbalance, or get your hands on some great clinician and patient resources, please head over to AustralianDizzinessClinics.com. And of course, we'd love it if you'd subscribe and leave us a rating.